What's up? What's up? Good to be back. Happy New Year, everybody. Hope everyone's doing well. A lot of blessings over the holidays and probably took a little too much time off, but that's all right. So we're back. So today's story, all right, I call it a tale of two charts, right? So let's take a look at this real quick. So here on the screen, I have two charts. Other than the color, this one's got a blue line, that one's got a green line. They look the same, right? Up and to the right, straight up like a rocket ship, okay? But they tell two very different stories. And one of these should horrify you, and one of these should give you hope. Although, depending on what side of the financial world you're on, it may be the opposite of everybody else, right? And I'll explain that. All right, so what are these charts? So let's start with the one on the left, because this came out on Twitter yesterday, okay? And it's been something I've been saying. This is not the first time I've said this in these videos, okay? The yearly interest payments on our $34 trillion of national debt has just surpassed $1 trillion, okay? This is what we pay a year on our 34 trillion. Last time I made a video, we were still in the 33 trillions. Okay. So we are now at 34 trillion. All right. So the yearly annualized interest expense in the US is already above $1 trillion for the first time ever. By the way, Kobe AC Letter on Twitter, great follow. But if you look at projections, they're saying 2030, $3 trillion a year in interest payments on the debt. Just think about that. The government brings in $6.3 trillion a year in income. That's taxes, right? That's what we pay them. And no, I'm sorry. They bring in 4.6 trillion a year. I apologize. They bring in 4.6 trillion a year. Okay. 1 trillion of that, they're paying interest. Okay. And that's projected to triple by 2030. So that's 6 years from now, right? 7 years. So even if and this is the crazy thing in this tweet that I don't think anybody picked up on, even if you adjust for inflation, interest is on track to hit $2 trillion per year in real terms by 2030. So think about this for a minute. In 6 years, okay, something that's $1 trillion today is going to triple in 6 years. But when you adjust for inflation, it's only worth a double. Just think about that, right? It's really 3 trillion, but in today's money, it's really 2 trillion. In 6 years, they're going to erode that much, right? And this is not assuming any recessions. What will happen if we get a recession? So that's like insanity, right? And here's from U.S. Debt Clock. This is our debt, $34.1 trillion. And right here, this is where I mixed up. We spend $6.3 trillion a year. That's our spending right there, like plain as day, right? And we only bring in 4.6. So we're running a deficit of 1.7 trillion. So we're just racking on to that 34 trillion. I mean, it's been $2 trillion added since the summer. I don't know if you follow that, okay? Unfunded liabilities, this is always fun one to look at. We're at 212 trillion of money we owe. That's not even in that debt yet, right? Social Security, 26 trillion, 40 trillion in Medicare. It's insane, all right? What do we spend on? 853 billion on defense. So this site has the interest at 737 billion. I mean, $1 trillion, what's 250 billion among friends? Medicare, we spend 1.7 trillion a year. Social Security, 1.3 trillion a year. All right. So that's that. Now, the other chart is Bitcoin price this morning. Okay. And this is why we talk about Bitcoin, because it's inflation proof, because you can't, it can't be inflated. You can't print more Bitcoin. And that's just one example of something you can use. To me, it's a hedge. It's digital gold. It's a hedge. Go back. I mean, the charts look exactly the same, except one of them is beneficial. One of them is not. All right. Now, yes, Bitcoin goes up and down. I get it. Right. But it's all about your time preference. Right. So to me, I'm a low time preference guy. All right. And when you have a low time preference, it does not penalize saving. If you have a high time preference, you're penalized. And the US dollar, the government, all this inflation, all this money that we're spending, it penalizes you for saving. If you work very hard and you trade all your time for money and you put that money in the bank expecting it to benefit you down the road, it's not going to benefit you. you have to have a high time preference when you think in dollars, right? We just showed it, right? 3 trillion in 6 years is only worth 2 trillion today. Okay. A low time preference is you can buy things, you can invest in things, purchase assets that over time, right, will protect your buying power and increase your wealth. Okay. And that time preference thing is also a little bit to do with kind of where you are in life. So, I'm in my mid 40s, right? These are what you would say, my peak earning years, right? So from your 30s to your 40s, that's kind of like you should be hitting your stride, peaking, you ride that, God willing, knock on wood, 10 years, and you hit retirement. You retire in your 50s, your 60s, your 70s, your 80s. It's about the decisions you make today, right? If you're, so that it kind of got me thinking, right? So I'm looking at these charts and I'm thinking about my parents, right? In their generation, my parents, late 60s, right? I got aunts and uncles in their 70s, like that's retirement time, so let's go back 30 years ago when they were at their peak earning years, right? And let's think about what has happened here and how that efforts they've made and what they've done has been stolen from them. Because that's all this inflation is. All this debt and inflation is just stealing. That's just what it is, right? So one of the best books I've ever read, and I'll recommend it to anybody. It's called The Bitcoin Standard by Seyfedin Ammous, right? And it's not a book about Bitcoin. Bitcoin comes in at the end, like the last 3 chapters, all right? But the first 7 or 8 chapters, it's all about money. It's all about how this whole thing works, how they steal from you. There's a quote. I'll just read you real quick. Chapter 7. Governments believe that when there is a choice between an unpopular tax and a very popular expenditure, there is a way out for them, the way towards inflation. This illustrates the problem of going away from the gold standard. So our money is not backed by anything. They can just print it at will. And that's what they've done, and they will continue to do. And you can see in that chart, the national debt interest payment is going to triple in 6 years. So if you think that the dollars that you're working for today and you're saving are going to benefit you, they're not. So getting back to my parents and their generation, let's go back to like 94, 95, right? All right. So again, like I said, you work your whole life to save for a future. It's being stolen from you at an alarming rate. Now, in 1994, 30 years ago, the average salary was 34,000-ish. Okay. So you would think if I was in 94 and I was in my peak earning years, I'm thinking, all right, what do I need for retirement? Right. And at that time, 5,000 a month was a good wage, right? 60 grand a year. That was a good amount of money. So what did we do back then? Okay, we worked. We saved our money in a bank, right? Think back to 94. There was no Bitcoin. There was no Robinhood. Like stock market was not accessible to the average person. We didn't have the opportunities we have today. You had a bank. You had a CD. Maybe you put your money in a CD. You got 4% on it, 5%, whatever you got, okay? You bought your house. Your job had a pension. Social Security was part of that plan. Okay, so your goal was, hey, I'm making $3 grand a month. If I can save and put some money away, I can live off 5,000 a month in retirement. In about 30 years, I'll have a good life. I'll save up a few $100 grand. My house will be paid off. So I just, I did a little math. Okay. So here's my chart. And correct me if I'm wrong, please. This is just me kind of estimating here, thinking about where things are today, and then just using an example. Okay. So 1994, average house, 160,000, 8% interest rates, $1,200 a month. That was your mortgage. Okay, so you're working. These are your peak earning years. You're making good money. $150 a month for property tax, $50 a month for home insurance, $150 a month for car insurance, for the car, right? Because cars were cheaper. What was property taxes a year? $1,800. Home insurance, probably $600-700. Again, if I'm wrong, correct me. I'm just kind of estimating here. All right, utilities, TV, phone, $200 a month. Food, you probably spent $100 a week on food, groceries, going out to eat, right? So $400 a month. Miscellaneous, you need an oil change, a pair of jeans for your kid. You want to go to the movies one night, whatever. $400 a month, and then $20 a month on healthcare. So you're making $35,000 a year, trying to save up to get to where you can have $5,000 a month in retirement. You're spending, so you bring in $3 grand a month. It's costing you $26.50 to live. About 10% of your money you can save. Fast forward. Okay, so you've been working all those years. You've been saving. You're like, yes, I got the house paid off. I own it outright. Car's paid off, right? I don't have to worry. I downgrade them. I don't need a fancy car, everything. So now you're retiring, and here's where they steal from you. The taxes on your house now are like $6 grand a year. from 150 to 500 a month. Your home insurance, I mean, has anybody quoted home insurance lately? 1,800 a year is a darn good price, okay? From $50 a month to 150. Okay, your car's paid off, great. You're good until it breaks down, but you got to say your car's paid off. God bless you. Okay, it doesn't need a lie. You got a decent car, it's paid for. Car insurance now is like 150 a month, though, right? Again, can't get car insurance. I don't know. It's expensive. Those utilities, I mean, we know gas, electric, water, TV, phone, cable, internet. Oh, it's 700 a month is probably pretty good. That food's not 100 a week. It's probably 250 a week, right? You're retiring, you want to go out to eat. You want to eat something. That's not a lot of money, 250. You go to a grocery store, I can spend that in 5 seconds. Miscellaneous, the doubles now. The oil change is $100. You need brakes, you need tires, whatever. You want to buy some clothes, whatever you do. And then healthcare. Healthcare is expensive. We made a video. I made a video last year, where they said the CPI came down and it was because the cost of healthcare dropped. That's a lie, right? So, you're probably spending $500 a month, co-pays, medicine, all this stuff. So that lifestyle that you thought you were saving and working so hard for, it's $3,800 a month. And that's without even paying taxes, because you got to pay taxes, right? So, and that's how they steal from you. Now let's look in 6 years where they're projecting things to like triple. How are you going to live on $5,000 a month? And that's what I mean. And this whole thing that they've done is they just steal from us. That's it. It's at an alarming rate. You work your whole life to save for a future that is being stolen from you at an alarming rate. And that's what those charts tell me. When I see that chart, I'm like, man, that's crazy. And now that thank God I can recognize that. And I'm at my peak earning years, God willing, knock on wood, I can stay going. And, so now I got to look at that and say, all right, and I've been, doing that stuff for the last few years. But I think it's important that everybody does that. And if you have the ability to save and invest in things, you can't save in dollars anymore. You can't keep it in the bank. It just gets eroded. It's gone. We have to accept that fact. That's where we are in the world. But if you can save your money and invest it in things that will grow, and whether that be stocks or income properties or Bitcoin or whatever floats your boat. But you have to think that way. You have to think in those terms. And if you do that, you'll beat that. You will beat this chart right here. But if you don't, and you think that things are the way they were 30 years ago, you're going to lose. You're going to lose. And it breaks my heart, man, because people work so hard and you just see where they are. And you just, so hey, guys. But yeah, so 2 charts. One of them offers a way out. One of them is a sobering reality check of where we are. So hopefully, this video kind of got someone's attention today. And if I'm wrong about any of this, please comment, because I love to learn. I love to get in discussions. All right, we're getting back on the daily videos. I got a bunch of them lined up in my head that I want to do next week. Pretty excited. All right, guys. So thank you so much. Have a great day. And, I'll connect with you next week. Enjoy the weekend.